we're going to start with just going down the line here and having everyone introduce yourself. So please let the audience know your name, your major from Cal Arts, and what year you graduated.
I'm scared. My name is James Brush. I graduated in 2012, so I'm an older person. I was part of the first class for the art and technology group. Was there anything else? Does it?
Hey folks. Hi folks. Can you hear me? This cool? Maybe not.
Pass the mic like BC Boys.
You can also do that. But
Oh,
hey,
there you go.
There you go.
That sounds good.
hi folks, Nigel X here. I use he, him pronouns. I am a 2015 graduate of the MFA Creative Producing Program in the School of Theater. Glad to be here.
I'll just do this. Sorry. The actors. Hi. No. My name is Noga Wind. My pronouns are they and she. I graduated from the acting program in 2018.
My name is Sage Lewis. I have a pretty loud voice. And I'm a MFA Music Composition, 2008. And my pronoun are he, him. So.
All right, thanks everyone. I'll also just project, might be easier. So to start, can each of you tell us a little bit about what you're currently doing, so your current role, and if you want to weigh in on multiple streams of income, how you do your things day to day, anything about what you're currently doing. So we'll start with James.
I have a quieter voice, so I currently help design software for for nonprofits and educational institutions. And you asked how much money I make?
No. Like what do you do?
Income
You do multiple things, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I do that. I consider what I do just basically an extension of what I was doing at Cal Arts, so kind of like an artist in the enterprise world, looking at it that way. It keeps me sane. If Cal Arts is sane, I don't know if my wife would agree. Other than that, I still create work. I create work with my kids. And that's a lot of fun. They want to sell it out of our trunk for like dollars, which is pretty cool as I go for it. It's interesting. I have presented art at galleries. When I lived in Colorado, there was a museum that people would show at. But in terms of selling, it's more like what I do full time, especially being involved in the nonprofit space. There's ways to take that money and divert it to other causes. Go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, overarching, I really consider myself an organizer and use culture in order to organize people, organize communities, culture as in the things we create, the things we see, to help folks think about their role in society, their role in change. And so day to day, that manifests in three different ways. Independently, I'm a creative producer, so I'm always producing plays, live performances, films, anything that you have an idea, a creative idea that you want to manifest and bring to life. I'm always working with artists, individual artists and organizations to produce, to bring things to life. In 2015, I also helped to launch an initiative called Art Equity, which is a national, now nonprofit organization that works at the intersection of art and activism. And we work with both individual artists as well as arts organizations to really provide tools, resources, and pathways to use our art to build campaigns around equity. And over the last 5, going on 6 years, we've been able to organize over 2,000 individual artists and have worked with over 100 theaters, museums, dance organizations, to really use art as, I always say it has seen art as a tipping point for social change, but working with individuals and organizations to use art to move the needle towards social change. So that work continues after George Floyd was killed in 2020. We launched the BIPOC Leadership Circle. We saw nationally an appointment of leaders of color at arts organizations across the country, becoming executive directors, artistic directors, general managers, And they were plumped into spaces that were not necessarily set up for them to succeed. So we started the BIPOC Leadership Circle as a community to really share resources, build new strategies for leadership, and really build a container. So as leadership is shifting, those leaders can actually be sustainable and see their visions manifest. So that's Arc Equity. And then full time, which pays all the bills, I am the Director of Communications and Strategy for Where Art Can Occur Theater Center, which is a 99-seat theater in North Hollywood, and we produce and present work for and by Black artists in Black communities. And so I'm just grateful to be back in the art making. I stepped away for a little bit because sometimes you hit a glass ceiling and you just feel like, this thing is not really set up for me to succeed. But I've been invited back, and I'm just excited to work with some dynamic artists, producing both performing and visual contemporary artists to bring them to, spaces and folks here in LA. That's me, cultural organizer, creative producing, organizing at the intersection of art activism and producing work in theater.
Period. Yes, I love that.
You picked up the mic.
Yeah, I was like, yes, let's keep going
Well, it's
on
for the
this.
sound
I'm
man. I
on,
hope it's
I know,
consistent
but mine isn't
recording.
working, so I'll just have to keep, that's fine, there's like 5 people here, we're good. Yeah, so, like I said, my name's Noga. I come from, I've been a queer activist for over a decade, and when I came to CalArts, that had been my background prior. So very similarly, my work is in the intersection of art and activism. I graduated from the acting program, so I wear multiple hats. I'm a working actor, so I've done shows on Hulu and HBO. I've done create my own work as well, so I'm a writer and a director and a producer. I have shows and stuff being in the process of being sold to some networks. I have live theater that I took to Edinburgh Fringe or other festivals in the UK, or I'm originally from Jerusalem, so I took work to the Middle East as well. And then around LA, New York, I'm a drag king, so a lot of my work had also been in drag and in a lot of the queer spaces. In 2019, I am now the founder and owner of Queer Up, which is the first queer management agency in Hollywood for queer people by queer people, which I'm extremely, extremely proud of. Kind of similarly coming in from the world of activism and entering into an industry that was desiring more queer representation, but no one was repping queer people because we were unmarketable and not profitable until pretty recently, where everyone wanted to jump on the bandwagon and then it became exploitation. So I really wanted to create a space for queer artists to succeed and thrive in the entertainment industry without having to compromise their identities or their values. So I created a company that rather being profit-centered, it's community-centered. So creating a lot of the conversations around representation, there's a big lack, in my opinion, of a conversation around accessibility and how do we make pursuing a career in the entertainment industry more accessible. We know that it's expensive, and we all as alum and you are students so lucky to be able to go to such a privileged school like CalArts. Whether you're on scholarship or not, being in this space puts you ahead of the game in a lot of ways, which is super, super exciting. But there are a lot of doors closed for a lot of people that don't have access to this kind of education and these kind of resources, or post-graduation, there's a lot of expenses in order to pursue this career and financial stability to pursue this career. So I have created a company that offers a lot of resources and support so that performers, actors, dancers, musicians, I rep kind of people across the board, models, influencers, whatever, can pursue this career without the same type of expenses that they have. So if it is having a lot of community support, like free headshots or free classes or free different things that basically working together as a community to help uplift everyone, because when one of us wins, we all win. So, and really trying to shift within Hollywood as well, how casting understands queer performers and what role queer performers can have in this industry. So not pushing queer performers only for queer roles, but understanding the ways that queer actors can play straight and cis roles, because we have been doing that all our lives to survive. And so an example of that is one of my clients is right now, who's non-binary and queer, obviously, is playing young Mike Tyson in the new Mike series on Hulu. So that to me is a beautiful example of, you know, the way that the industry normally perceives queer, non-binary people as like hyper feminine, not being able to, you know, play anything that is not super queer, especially for queer Black men. It definitely, I think, is a niche that even more is a problem in how much there is a cornering in what folks can play and are given the opportunity to play. So for me, like, that role is a great example of pushing the boundaries of casting and of Hollywood to understand what queer people can do, and the superpower that exists within queerness. So yeah, my day-to-day income fluctuates. You know, it's I won't come up and present a false reality that it's just easy and financially secure, for sure. It's not. It's not, and it's hard, and it requires a lot of creativity and a lot of hustle. And so that is what I do. I hustle. So I have income coming in from my acting gigs, and I have income coming in from being a manager and my clients, and I have take on side opportunities or consulting opportunities or different things that kind of are in the intersection of my activism and my art, and utilizing that to pay my rent as well.
So I graduated in 2008, which is like right as I was coming out of CalArts, with ready to kind of like finally start my life, my career, be done with school. Is the Great Recession happened, which, if you guys remember that, but people were just getting laid off everywhere, and they were like, who were much more experienced with me, and I just found it really, really impossible to get a job, and kind of a really confusing time. So I, for a couple of years, was like just trying to find like small grants to pursue the projects I was doing at CalArts, and relying on my partner who was able to get a job, and then out of that sort of learned to become like a self-employed artist and producer. And it's weird because I've never, I just, like, my whole career has grown out of that, and I've never like had a regular job. I've never had a paycheck, never had stability or like a salary, but it's always worked out. And some years have been great, and some years have been more difficult, especially like during the pandemic. But it's like I don't know how to do anything else, and I don't know if I ever will, because it's really foreign for me to have a regular job. So one of the things that I was doing as a student here, and before that, for a lot of my life, was very interested in I guess certain parts of the world. Like one is Havana, Cuba. I went there when I was 19 for a month, and then sort of started developing these relationships with other artists there, and then had this project where I kind of was initiating with some other friends this Time Impossible performance of between artists from Havana and LA, and a lot of were the people from CalArts, and so we're sort of using new technology to kind of communicate and collaborate, and then that was also sort of the medium that we're performing through video projections, because there's been like this iron curtain with Cuba where since 1960 it's literally been pretty much impossible to go there as artists or for them to come here. And then through that, it took about 5 years. We premiered this theater and new media performance in Havana, Miami, which was the first time that their collaboration on stages happened between the two countries. And then a bunch of arts organizations and journalists and people came out to see that performance, which was in 2009. And then all these arts organizations started contacting me to help them produce projects and performances in Cuba. So I started bringing out orchestras and organizing theater conferences and bringing like choirs and basically universities. Did work with CalArts a couple times and initiated projects and kind of experiences there. And then so that just became one of the things I did. And I would go to Cuba about 3 to 5 times a year for the past 15 years. And then during the years where Obama's kind of normalization with Cuba process was happening, there was like this tidal wave of interest in cultural exchange with Cuba, and I became like one of the few people, like literally one of a handful of people in the country who knew how to produce projects there. So then I, without having too much of a long story, I started developing the same type of relationships in Iceland, and also produce like projects and also like experiences in Iceland. Also, so simultaneous to all that, I'm a film composer and write music for, it kind of goes in waves and changes every few years, but I've done a number of indie films, I've written music for a number of like virtual reality, kind of immersive films, I've done like sound installations and immersive experiences, and then also my own, like right now I'm working on this science fiction project, which is like started with music and has now become many different kind of mediums, which I could maybe tell a little bit more about that later. But so that's sort of like what my my work is like, and none of it was planned, and it's all like very in line with my personality, but totally unintentional. And when I try to do something else, it doesn't work, and I just sort of keep doing what I just described.
Awesome.
It sounds like we went to CalArts.
Yeah. Just let things happen to you and move in the way that makes sense, right? Very cool. Thank you all so much for sharing such a cool, multifaceted range of experiences here. I'm hearing a lot of talks about, community and kind of community building and how things and opportunities evolve based on those relationships, right, both from CalArts and beyond. So I wonder if any of you want to weigh in on a way of like, what kind of tips would you give a younger art student about building community or about networking? How do you develop that at school, and then how do you develop that after school when you don't have those, your cohort right around you all the time? So if anyone wants to weigh in on tips and tricks for networking and building community.
Sure. I'll try this again. I would say one of the best things maybe would be to practice listening to others, to your own voice, whether it's spoken or performed in some way, or even silence. What does silence sound like? Not to go John Cage, I'm gonna get killed by CalArts. And ask questions. If you are sort of looking to build relationships with people, and this is something that I think about all the time in designing software, is what is the relationship that people have with themselves, with their household, with their community, with the education system, with the politics and governance that dictate what they can and can't do and what's their reaction to it. asking questions that don't involve a yes or a no, but how is this possible, or can you expand on this for me? And allowing other people to talk, and in that way you're facilitating a dialogue, which is something that's just paramount to CalArts, this discourse. It's such a fancy word, but it sounds so cool, and you'll just be continually hearing it now, after you get brainwashed. And it doesn't go away. I was telling someone earlier, like the Kool-Aid doesn't wear off. So, but it's important, I think, in that way to open up from people that go to CalArts. You are equipped with this way of communicating and opening things up and basically deconstructing what is present in front of you, whether that's a person or an environment, and being able to make a difference or a change. And as people speak to you, you then reflect on yourself, what is resonating, and they are resonating back in their own space of what are they saying and what do they feel, is that true? And you'll gain this as you're sitting in sessions that last hours and hours. And I know there are professors that are no longer with us. This was kind of like indoctrination into CalArts, where you might have a 12-hour critique class with Michael Asher, for example. And that's part of the community, is speaking and listening and asking questions. And I think just being present, having that open mind to things can be artistic, things are possible. And like, it's Nigel, right? Like,
I'm nice.
Nigel Sage.
No.
Sage. Sorry. I'm reading the paper here and trying to remember when we all introduced ourselves, and I said I was scared, and I wasn't kidding. So, I guess like all of us are saying, there's many ways to be involved in the community that you are, and by going to CalArts, you realize you find that courage and belief in yourself to just take a step forward and found a company or found a nonprofit, or travel to Cuba, and you realize that you can do it and that you'll always be supported. If no one else is around you, you know that you can do it. You can support yourself. There's that voice inside of you. And from what I believe, that's from being at CalArts. So I look back and these are the instructors that gave me the courage and the confidence to feel that way, or the other students that surrounded me, or those performances that I went to that were just riveting, or going through the main gallery and hearing somebody at 2 a.m. practicing a trumpet. It's like, wow, that means something. It's very special. And I was joking with Jen and Henderson earlier about the smell of CalArts, which is also important. And right now it must be terrible with the heat and the air conditioning out there, but I don't want to know. But I think that would be my advice. Be open, listen, go with the flow, trust yourself, and that's something that you'll develop here. So I should have opened with thank you all for being here, thank you for your time, and welcome to this legacy of CalArts. It's something so special. Somebody once said it's the Harvard of art schools, and I think it's beyond Harvard's capability, really what we're capable of doing. And I'll end there.
Yeah, I think community is survival, and we need people, and we need community, and I think that we thrive best when we have support, and because our minds will do greater things when we're not a lone wolf, right? When we have more people weighing in and giving their insights, and the strongest pieces of art I've ever seen or have ever created have all been in collaboration with other people, and have never been just me alone, focusing on my own ego. I think that kind of adding on to the stuff that's been said, I think that it's really important to not just think what you can get, when you're building community, what you can receive, what you can earn, or, but what you can give, and what can you offer. Because often when we focus on what we can offer, what we're gonna receive is just gonna happen. When we go into a space looking what we can receive or what we can get, the energy we bring with that, the entitlement that kind of comes with that sometimes, what people will perceive from that, can sometimes then get in the way of actual receiving. And I think the strongest communities I have built and been a part of have been ones where I came in to think, what can I offer and what can I learn? And coming out the other end, discovering how much I received from those exchanges. And I have a lot of thoughts on community, so I'm not gonna I don't wanna go on a tangent on this, but you are now in this really exciting space of learning and creativity. And one of the things that I think CalArts does in certain ways, but actually has room to grow on, is don't take no for an answer. Don't accept any system as set. Anything that is being told to you that that's just how it is, or that's what the world is, or that's how this industry is. Take that with a grain of salt and make it your own. Like, the amount of times I had been told as a queer person what my limitations are, or what is actually open for me or available for me. And if I took all of those things that have been given to me or told to me over time and accepted them as fact, even not just about myself, but about systems, this is how the industry is. You have to do this and this and this in order to do that. You have to, in Hollywood it works like this, only if you do that, then you're gonna get that. Like, that's just how it is. Like, you'll hear a lot of that because there's a lot of people that have been doing this for years and they're jaded, or they're just, that's the system that they know, or they haven't been given the tools to think outside the box. And if there's anything that I can say lean into at CalArts, which is one of the magnificent things about the school, is find the people that think outside the box. And the weird things, the things that you're like, what the fuck was this? The gallery nights you go in, you're like, I don't know what I just saw. Like, take those things as inspiration, as someone who said, I'm gonna do what my mind, wherever my mind went, and I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna bring it to fruition. And that ability to think outside of that, in that liminal space, to say, okay, yeah, this is how everyone does this, but I'm gonna do it this way, and I'm just gonna see what happens. And be okay if it crashes and fails, and then try something else, or be like, well, that didn't work, but at least I know I tried that. Or the amount of discovery that exists when you allow yourself to be in those expansive spaces. And I feel like some of the biggest community changes and social changes we've seen historically have been from people not saying yes to whatever system or thing existed, and to say, I'm gonna make my own. And that can exist in your art, and that can exist in your community, and that can exist in your social impact, because your values are your core, and everything else you can create. That's what's set, is what's internally inside you, driving you.
That's great.
Go ahead.
I'll just add, for building relationships, it's been important for me just to be authentic, be real. And set intentions, I want to collaborate with you, so I want to just spend time with you in your studio, or I want to talk with you about your work. Or I need mentorship. I don't know how to do this thing that I see you doing. I love to spend time with you. So I just encourage authenticity. And also, who is it, Nicki Minaj? Your network is your net worth. Your network doesn't have to be 10,000 people. It could be 5 strong, authentic, genuine relationships that can get you to the next phase of your journey. So that's worked well for me, and I'm grateful. And I just feel like when I'm not trying to perform or present, and I'm just meeting people where I actually am, I see the greatest result.
I guess what I'd add to that is one of the most important things that you can do while you're a student at CalArts is party a lot. It's one of your most important jobs, and I don't mean it doesn't have to be, getting drunk or doing drugs. It basically just means be with people and have fun and make friends, and partying can be a good way of doing that. But I'm an introvert and sometimes don't do that enough. And what I regret the most about being at CalArts is sometimes I would walk around shy or not feel comfortable or not go in, break into sort of a group of friends or something happening, just because I was too shy. But really, but I did make a lot of amazing friends at CalArts, and honestly, today most of my professional network still somehow goes back to CalArts, whether they were friends I had when I was at CalArts and then I stayed in LA because I wanted to be around those people and keep working with them professionally. And we've been doing that to someone I met through I knew from CalArts, but I can trace it back to the time I was at CalArts. Or a lot of my friends and colleagues now are people who went to CalArts maybe at a different time, and I never knew them at CalArts. But when you go around LA, because there's a lot of us around here in the creative industry, you're always running into people from CalArts. And when you run into someone and you find out that they were from CalArts, there's this bond that happens. And there's this kinship, and there's this trust, and there's this respect. And so that's something that's really hard to find. Otherwise, in the arts and entertainment in LA, it takes a lot of time to build those bonds with people. But for me, there's this instant camaraderie where we could work together and it'll work out because I know you know how to think in a certain way that I know how to think, and we'll figure it out together. And that's super important. And so, also, the things you learn when you're at CalArts, and finding yourself as an artist and having the space to try things out and really develop your voice and your technique is also equally as important. Obviously that's the most important thing. But when I was my first year, I had this teacher, which is one of the reasons I came here, named Lucky Moscow, who's this legendary composer, teacher, and I came here and was studying with him, and then he died 3 months after I started, very unexpectedly. But he told me I was living in Westwood in my first year because my partner was there and she was going to UCLA, and so I was like, well, if we live there, I'll go against rush hour, the commute, the opposite direction. And then he was like, the most important thing I can tell you, CalArts, is not about the classes you take. Most universities and schools are about your coursework. Here, that's just this extra thing we do to sort of give structure to it. But you cannot be living in Westwood because you're gonna miss out, and it's not about your courses. You need to live up here. And I was like, yeah, but I'm with someone and she's in Westwood. And he's like, well, sleep in your car. I'll tell you about this secret shower, which is near the mail room,
Yes.
you can get access to. And you need to be sleeping up here at least 5 nights a week. Otherwise, you're wasting it. And I don't know really what you're doing here, because it's all about that 2 a.m, encounter where someone's working on something in the studio next down to you, you're working on something, or the collaborations, the projects you get on that are completely outside of the curriculum. And that's where it all happens, and that's 90% of what you learn at CalArts is just through the community that you become deeply part of. And so, so that would be my advice.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks, everyone. I know this is like super quick, but we're already at 45 minutes in, so I want to make sure if anyone in the audience has questions ready to go, you are welcome to raise your hand and ask. Otherwise, we have some extras. Yeah, go ahead.
And how did you pay for the tuition?
Practical question.
That's real. No, I appreciate you asking that. Like, you know, there's so many people love avoiding these, you know, questions because they seem loaded, but we gotta fucking talk about it. It's hard. To be honest, if I hadn't had a really big scholarship coming here, I wouldn't come. Honestly. I was very lucky to receive that. Was one of the Pell Grant recipients. Thank God for some of that 20K forgiveness. Come on, I'm ready for you. Yeah, I mean, loans. You know, my family was able to pay for some. I got a big scholarship. I worked 3 to 4 jobs on campus while I was here. I came to school having worked before. I didn't come here at 18 when I came for my BFA, so I had come working previously, so I had experience already of doing that. So I had experience juggling a big workload prior, so I think I was a little bit more prepared because of that. But that was hard. It was hard, and there were things that I missed out on at CalArts because I was working. But you learn to like finesse, hustle, and figure it out. I look back at my time at CalArts and I feel like I did everything I could. And that is like the advice I'd give is like whatever extra time you have beyond your job or your workload, just fucking do it. Like just say yes. Say yes to everything. Someone says like, oh, I want to make I'll do it. Well, I'll be a part of it, you know. And sometimes you'll take on 7 projects and then it's too much and then you have to quit that or drop that or whatever. But just say yes to things. Say yes to things even if they don't seem totally up your alley, because you're probably gonna just grow, because you're gonna learn about something that you never knew about before, or you're gonna make a connection with someone that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be in your sphere. And I have built connections like that from CalArts, and then have copied that in the world, in the real world, you know, outside, is just saying yes to things and jumping on things. And a lot of the things that I do today, I did not think, I never thought I would own a company. Like, you know, like if 5 years ago or 3 years ago, 5 years ago, someone would be like, oh, you know, you're gonna be a manager in Hollywood. I'd be like, that's very funny. No, absolutely not. Why would I do that? That sounds really corporate. You know, like, you know, but and my job, thank God, is not corporate at all. But, you know, it all kind of happened because I said yes to things, and things happened, and then I was like, why? Oh, why don't we change that? Let's see what we can do with queer people here and here and here. And then things kind of happened. So, if like the money stress is real and legitimate, and you don't need to pretend that it doesn't exist, and it's legit to talk about it and be vocal about it and be unapologetic about it, because, you know, being shameful about it is just some fucking classist propaganda. So let's own it and be real. And, you know, and ask for support. You know, if you need help, ask for it. And there were times where I came to CalArts and I was like, I need like more financial aid. Is there a way I can get more? Like, I need this extra job. Can I get allotted more hours? Like, be vocal. If you need something, see who you can lean on. And I've leaned on people, if it was friends, or I leaned on people through CalArts and got more resources for me. Like, you're not always gonna get a yes, but at least try. At least try, because you never know sometimes the things that happen. And external scholarships, applied external scholarships.
Anyone else on making their way through school?
Well, I just agree. You have to ask for it. I didn't know that my first year, and I just got this kind of a small amount of scholarship, and then one of my teachers was like, you just have to ask for it because we won't give it to you unless you ask for more. And I was like, oh, you can do that? Like, yeah, you have to do that. So I just set up meetings with the dean and faculty and said, I need more scholarship, and then I got it. But it was like, if they didn't tell me that, I mean, it's so simple, but like, I didn't know that you have to ask for it.
It's like salary negotiation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
uh-huh,
push,
yeah.
push.
Can I also add something?
Mhm.
The financial aid office will give out scholarships. If somebody drops out halfway, they've only been paid out for that first semester scholarship. If you reach out, they might have something in spring from somebody that might have left school. So check there as well.
Do we have any last questions? I think we could get one more in and then we'll have to wrap it up sadly. Any other questions? Carolyn?
Any students have questions before I ask mine? Okay. What projects do you guys have coming? What's coming down the pipeline? What's in the hopper that you can talk about if you're not under NDA?
So I just talk, so I can talk.
You guys have been
Yeah. Well, you know, the pandemic has not allowed arts organizations to present and produce work live and in person. So we're producing a full season that kicks off in January 2023, titled Black with a capital B. And it will just have a series of, there's a dope orchestra called Southside Symphony, you know, mixing original orchestrations with Back That Ass Up, to a dancer, Jade Solomon, out of Seattle, Washington, who's gonna come down and create some new work in our space, to a movement artist named Freedom, who's building a piece around reparations. So I'm just excited to be able to have artists in our space, invite audiences to come and see their work, and us to be able to be in dialogue again. So I'm working on a lot, Carolyn. So come down to where art can occur. It's Waco Theater Center is right on Lancashire, to see some cool work that will be, you know, be here in Los Angeles.
When does it open?
January 2023 is when the official season will kick off and start. That's me.
So I can't talk a lot about upcoming corporate projects, but I've been doing a lot of writing actually, and writing about designing in the philanthropic space and what it means and what it takes to be a citizen philanthropist. And Noga mentioned accessibility, and that's something that we think about all the time in how we create things, and then this other key word about trust. So the values where I work at, one of them is trust, customer success, equality, innovation, and sustainability. And writing about those elements of what are the thoughts that go into presenting an interface for somebody to interact with, whether it's donating or it's getting admitted to college for the first time, or if it's applying to a job or volunteering, and being able to recognize this concept of we live in a community with companies that often sponsor nonprofit events. Those nonprofits' missions are often to propel or make our world better for things that maybe those companies have already caused. But imagine you move to a city, you go to school like at Cal Arts, and then you end up working in this area or in whatever industry, and then you begin to give back, whether it's on a one-time basis, a recurring basis with money, or volunteering, or even through your own influence of telling other people of how special what you're seeing is, and catalyzing that kind of movement and writing about that and sharing it. I don't think anyone's gonna read it, which is fine, but that's okay for me, just putting it out there. And I think that's also something that being at Cal Arts makes you feel okay with. This Noga mentioned experimenting and doing, or Sage, right?
Oh.
Yeah, you I think you mentioned it, going to parties and also like exploring these other outlets. And how can you incorporate that back into finding out who you are, like what's your constellation in this universe, and being open to where that can take you. But I think that's kind of always the next project is, where am I going and why am I here? I remember Charles Gaines asking us that question in one of his classes. It was like, oh, isn't it kind of an important question to know like what you're doing here? And people laughed, and then he was very serious about it. But it was a really good opening to that class, and that's what I would say.
Sage, anything coming up you want to mention?
Well, yeah, I guess the main things I'm working on right now are this science fiction series that I wrote with a couple friends. We're pitching it to showrunners right now, and I'm also developing an immersive experience out of it for a 1-month residency in New York later this year.
Amazing. Great. Well, thank you all so very much. Thank you all for coming. We're going to do a really quick turnaround, but let's thank everyone, James, Nigel, Noga, and Sage. Thank you all for your conversation.